Hello there, I'm Big Alias. You've caught me in the morning, early in the morning, literally just woken up. But I want to talk about the First Descendant. Yes, I was the first Ascendant this morning. That was good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add like a little drum, but after that, in post. Or there's just going to be a hugely awkward silence after that. We'll see how it goes. So the First Descendant. Now, I reviewed, what was it called? X-Defiant recently. I reviewed X-Defiant, and I said that it was very generic. It was a very generic experience. Didn't really do anything majorly different, and that it was a lot like Call of Duty, but it just banged off the fact that there was no skill-based matchmaking, which I found to be very bizarre. But yes, it made for a very generic experience. This has nothing. That had nothing on this. The First Descendant. The First Descendant is tremendously generic. It is very generic. But I'm not even sure if I will call it a generic experience at this point, because it's just so similar to Destiny that I honestly think that, you know, it just feels more like a knockoff experience than a generic experience. I think the difference between X-Defiant and the First Descendant is that in X-Defiant, you know, it was still its own video game. It still carved its own path. It just did everything on a sort of like gameplay level and all of that, tremendously similarly to Call of Duty. However, it did have its powers, you know, and it had its own art style. It looked different. It kind of played differently, you know, etc, etc, etc. Here, this experience, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, okay, so you open up with the tutorial mission. And that seems pretty good, you know, the gameplay is good, gunplay is good, movement's good, the game is smooth, and you play through it, and then you get to the hub world, and the hub world is just basically the hub world from Destiny 2, I think there were a couple, so one of the hub worlds from Destiny 2, in terms of scaling, size, layout, linearity. And then you go to one of the like vendors, one of the people who's mixed in amongst like a marketplace of people. You walk up to them, you press a button, they start speaking to you, but there's a text box next to them explaining everything that they're talking about, and then there's a little box at the bottom saying, do you want to start this mission? You begin the mission, or at least you take the mission, and then you teleport into the world that mission is in. The big difference here being that there's no window dressing, there's no spaceship to transport you there, but yeah, so you just teleport straight to the mission, and then you're in like this open world, and you can then travel to the marker that you've set yourself for this mission, or you can just do some open world free roaming. There are other people in the world, a fair few amount of people. There are random encounters. You will see other people doing their missions dotted around the world, alongside you doing yours. You then travel to your mission, and you can take it on, and now that mission would just be like an open world random encounter. Defend this, go here, do this, blah blah blah, you know, the standard stuff, and other people can join in on your mission while you're doing this mission, and then you can, you know, build up a bit of a team after that. However, once you've done that, you have these solo missions, or these like encapsulated missions. They're a lot more linear. You can only go in there, well, at the beginning of the mission, you choose whether you want to go in there on your own, or whether you want to, you know, team up with a bunch of people. And yeah, so you can go in there on your own, linearly, in a straight path, just you, walking through or running through this path, defeating enemies and getting to the end, and there's usually a boss. And then when you're done, you get some loot. When you, I'm not done yet, when you kill enemies, they have these little orbs, these little ball things. They'll have ammo, or, you know, points towards your, whatever it's called, final thing, when everything's built up and you do a big attack, or a weapon that drops in the form of a little ball. They're color coded. They're either just grey, blue, I think purple, yellow, and I think there's one at the end, but I'm not sure what that color is because I haven't got that far yet. So does this all seem very familiar? Tremendously. I could have genuinely just described Destiny. It's very similar to Destiny. Everything I just described was, in my opinion, my experience with Destiny. You know, you go up to a vendor, they speak to you, you click a box, and then you teleport into the world, and then you take on some enemies in a bit of an open world thing. People jump in, and you then get these subsequent linear missions. It's very similar, to the point where I think it feels very intentional. The scaling is about the same as it is in Destiny. The worlds are fairly big, but they feel more like chunks of a world, and can be fairly linear. I don't know why I can't speak this morning. I would say that the only difference is that the UI is slightly different, but even then it's not that different. You have a character in the middle, and there's grids on the left and grids on the right, and some of them are weapons, some of them are powers, some of them are equipment. It's crazy. It's really mind-blowing how similar to Destiny this experience is, especially when, and I think this is the weirdest part, we have Destiny. I get it when we get our, Xbox gets its own version, or PC gets its own version of a game that was already popular on the PlayStation. I get that because PlayStation has some awesome titles, but this is just, we have it. Why does this exist? Well, I'll tell you why it exists. The biggest selling point is that this is free. This is a free experience. Typically, you have to... I know that Destiny is free to play now, but it's very limited, and when it came out and for a few subsequent years after that, Destiny 2 was not a free experience. This is a free game. You can just go ahead and download this entire thing for free, which I think is absolutely crazy. Plus, it's in third person, so that, that is different, and also... I mean, shit, if you don't like what Destiny are doing right now, then you have a different bite at the apple here. I know it's very generic. I know it's a very generic experience. I know it's very similar to Destiny. That doesn't mean it's bad. I've actually enjoyed myself with this game. I've actually had a pretty good time with it. In my opinion, in my experience, it ran very smoothly. I think the gameplay is actually pretty good. The loot is plentiful. I still can't figure out why this game is free to play, because you pick up loot constantly in this game. You pick up loot constantly in this game. I think they sell skins or something, and I'm a little bit worried as to where they're going to go with that, because there's no way a game of this quality, where loot is dropped as frequently as this, is going to hold on to this. There's just no way. But yeah, like I said, the quality is great. The graphics are really good. They're good graphics. And yeah, just overall, the moment-to-moment gameplay, I think, is very good. The story isn't engaging in any way, shape, or form. It really isn't. I don't really care about what happens to these characters. And from what I can tell, the pool of content is really not that big yet. But, it has literally just released, so I suppose give it time. I think the worst part about this game is the constant advertising I had for it. They have not let me forget about the existence of this game. Christ, it pops up all the time. But no, I mean, this is a testament to how a game can be very similar to another game, but still be very enjoyable. I have enjoyed my time with this game, and I certainly wouldn't say the fact that it's so similar to Destiny puts me off in any way. And to put it into context, I couldn't finish Anthem because I just didn't like the gameplay was okay, but I didn't like the setup, the layout. I hate the fact that it had those stupid missions where you have to collect a certain number of things in order to advance. I don't just like this formula. I don't know. This game's been kind of fun. So I'm gonna put a score on it. I think that's fair. Yeah, I know it's a little bit higher than X-Defiant, but I, personally speaking, haven't touched X-Defiant since the review, and I'm just about to jump back into First Descendant, so I think that says a lot, and I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles